After talking about the necessity of customer discovery in the early phases of this strategic design, and talking about different user research techniques that we have, so now I want to talk a little bit about problem interview. Okay, how to plan and conduct problem interview, because problem interview actually is a technique that could help us to validate all those three assumptions that we had in the beginning. But let's see where it comes from. Problem interview comes from this lean startup idea. And in lean startup, we have we have a loop. Like everything's a is considered as kind of iterative process. Like there are cycles of actions. Like we, for example, generate ideas, then we build prototype, then we have prototype or product here at the end, and then we're going to use that prototype or product to measure with the users through some kind of user research, and then the result would be data, and then we process the information and convert it into some results that could help us to make some decisions, and that would be again that feed our design process, our ideation process. Okay, so we ideate, create a new concept, and we build prototype, and we repeat this process again and again. But here, where is this problem interview? Like in design strategy, like strategic design, we start knowingly that these are all assumptions. We start from some value proposition with some vision statement, with some assumptions. Okay, and those things are here to be like in the first iteration. Instead of product, we have those assumptions to be validated. So we start measuring, and then there are going to be some user insights, some data, and then we're going to process, and we're going to continue this way. Like that's the beginning, that's the starting point of this strategic design process. So another question would be, like we decided to do problem interview to collect, to validate or invalidate those assumptions, those three assumptions that we had. Okay, who's the person that we're going to interview? Like where to find them? Okay, and all those things about, like, are we going to reach out to them through social media or through some friends and these kind of things. So first of all, we need to know who's the person that we want to interview. Definitely they should be our potential user, potential customers. Okay, so if they their characteristics fit the characteristic that we listed in our provisional persona, then we understand that, okay, this is a potential user, so let's talk with this guy. Okay, and if no, so we're not going to waste our time or their time to interview with them, basically. Another thing is that, okay, where to find them. Okay, we decided, for example, an example is that, like, I'm designing an app for parents, the kids like 7 to 10 years. It's like some kind of psychological, like emotional kind of application. Okay, so I'm designing for this group, parents of kids 7 to 10 years, for example. So the first location that comes to my mind is that okay, I can go in front of elementary schools, either on a drop-off time or pick-up time. So I could find these guys, these parents, and then I can start communicating with them. I ask my questions, and I do my interview there. Then I think that, okay, is it a good time? Like, if a parent is waiting for the kid and the kid show up and then they're looking like this, they most probably won't focus on the questions and answer, and then I don't want to get some irrelevant answers or some hasty answers. So that's not a good location. So what I mean here is that you think creatively about where your customers lurk by focusing on the type of activities that might be doing. Okay, could I go to a shopping center? Could I go to a place that they like? They purchase clothing stuff for their kids. Yes, could be a good place, but there might be in hurry as well. But the thing that comes to my mind is that okay, playground would be a better option. Like in playground, kids are playing, parents are totally like by themselves. Like either they're talking with each other or they are checking their social media account and those kind of things. So that's the best time that I could approach them and I can ask my questions. So playground it is. So this is how we try to find the location, because what we want in problem interview is a kind of direct contact. Like these days we can do Zoom meeting and all those things, but finding people would be difficult. Like how we can find those parents? Either we should go to our friends and friends of friends or something like that. That sometimes doesn't work that much. If they're anonymous, they are more like they're more feeling like they can answer the question, because we tell them that okay, we don't like record your information, our research, and all those things. Okay, so basically, I believe this like in person interview, like direct contact for interview, is the greatest way. Now that we understood a little bit about the problem interview, let's see how we can create those questions, because everything's subject questions. Like you can talk, you can ask your question, and you can like ask another question that was not in the question list. That's totally fine. But we need to have a list of questions to begin with, and we need to be a little bit committed to that list because we are looking for the answers to those questions. Okay, so that's why we need a kind of structure. Like problem interview has two main sections: screener part and interview part, and the interview part also has two parts. So in total, I would say there are three parts to a problem interview. The first one focusing on the user assumption, the second one focusing on the problem assumption, and the third one focusing on this solution or value proposition assumption. So all three assumptions or hypotheses should be validated here. Okay, but the screener question. Screener is a list of questions used to qualify potential participants for a study. Okay, so the issue here is that we cannot assume that everybody there in the playground, for example, is a parent. So we want to make sure that the person that you are interviewing is a parent, not a babysitter, for example, or a relative person or something like that. So that's why we have all these questions related to this screener question ready, and we try to ask them before getting started with the interview part. Okay, so maybe we have more criteria listed in our provisional persona. For example, they should have a kid with some kind of, I don't know, some kind of ADHD, for example, or some kind of level of autism or something like that. Okay, so those are the group of people that we are trying to interview. So we try to filter out the participant based on these criteria that we extracted from our provisional persona. So that persona assumptions should be validated before getting started with the interview section. Good screener question must help you quickly weed out the wrong people. Obviously, they should seem non-intrusive to the participant, but they are deal breaker questions. Okay, again, these are from this book, and the example is from this book as well. Like, for example, from the book example, I believe you remember before, like we talked about it previously, that the user group were bride to be living in Los Angeles, looking for a wedding venue, affordable wedding venue. So these are examples for that project. Were you married within the last few years? So if they are not married yet, or if they got married like 10 years ago, we don't want to interview with them, because simply the things that was important 10 years ago might not be important anymore. So we want to make sure that these guys had some fresh experiment and experiences about this kind of choosing a wedding venue in Los Angeles. So that's why the second question is that, did you happen to get married here in Los Angeles? Because if they got married in, for example, Mexico or another city, another place, they are not dealing with the things that we are trying to address. Okay, though the problem might be totally different. That's why we ask those screener questions. Okay, so this is the beginning. Like, if this screener question, if in the based on the screener question we understood that this guy is not a good match to our provisional persona, so we simply thank them and let them be, and we go to the next person. So then it comes to the second part, the interview part. Okay, and interview part, when we write down those questions and when we talk with those guys, we need to make sure that we are not biased by this project. Like, we need to make sure that we are testing our hypothesis. We are not selling our idea to people. Okay, so all the questions should be designed in kind of unbiased, neutral way. Okay, and it's more about listening, not about pitching your ideas, not about selling your ideas. So you need to ask question and let these guys, let your participant to talk about what they want. Okay, you might interrupt them if you see that they are talking about something like totally irrelevant, but you need to make sure that you are a good listener, basically. So interview part, as I mentioned before, has two parts, two sections: setting up the context section and money shot question. Like, money shot question is about your value proposition. You want to validate your value, your solution to the problem. Setting up the context is basically helping them, like reminding them about their experience, talking about their challenges, the problem that they were facing at that time, and all those things. So again, basically the screener question focuses on the user assumption. Setting up the context focuses on the problem side, and money shot question focuses on your solution assumption. Okay, so all these three assumptions are covered here. So both parts are to be tailored in a way to make sure not to bias the participant in favor against their value proposition, obviously. And here I want to talk about, again, the example from this book, because I found it really amazing. So I'm going to read these questions, like 5 questions for the second part, for the setting up the context part. And I'm going to comment on those, on the questions. How did you go about planning your wedding? This is a great opening question, because it helps them to remind what happened there, how they plan, they start thinking about the details, and you remind them about all those things with these things, so they can talk about some things that are more related to the planning process and all those things. And it's very important as well for you, because you are designing a user workflow as well. So your user workflow should be designed based on the user's behavior, like in the real world. Okay, so how they plan would be important part, because that's how they most probably would get to your product, and you want to see that when they get to your product in the process. The second question, did you have a budget for venue, and were you able to stay within the budget? That's another amazing question. Like budget would be a part of your project, like that's a part of the decision making. Like you want to understand how they make those decisions, and you want to make sure that you include those things, because after all, it's about like designing a solution to choose affordable wedding venue. We had it in our value proposition. Okay, so that's why the budget would be important. And you want to know how they do this kind of budgeting here. The other one, how many people were you planning? So that's also important. You want to know about the size of wedding venues. Like if you see that the size of wedding venue would be like an average of these or that, or I mean, you get some good estimation about those important things as well. So these are question 2 and 3 will give you some amazing input about the important things that you would need. Those are crucial in your design process. And what were some of the challenges you faced in finding the venues? This is the best question, I believe, here, and the most important question in setting up part. Simply because here is where you're gonna understand if the problem that you are targeting is the problem that they were facing. Okay, the challenges you faced. So here you're gonna validate the problem. Okay, the assumption about the problem, not the problem. How did you overcome these challenges? Did you end up having to compromise on your ideal wedding and so forth? So this is also good. This is also necessary type of question that you want to have in your setting apart. Simple reason is that you want to know what are the workarounds, what's the current situation, like what is the current way that the users would solve that problem, okay, and how effective would be though. Maybe here by the answers that you've been given here, you find out that okay, there are some competitors out there, they're working perfectly, and you don't need to continue. That could also happen. That happened in a previous project that we had. So again, look at all these questions. There are 5 questions, amazingly stated, kind of freshening up, like opening question. The second one and third one is about those crucial information that you would need in your design process. Fourth one about the challenges, the problem. You're validating the assumption about the problem. And 5, you're gonna learn a little bit about your competitors here, and what are the workarounds and how effective are those workarounds. Okay, so setting up section is to validate or invalidate your assumption about the problem, the user's problem. And you can also here, you see, you can prioritize those problems that the user have. Okay, and finally, the money shot section, the last section. In money shot part, you're asking your money shot question, which is your value proposition actually formulated in a kind of question way. Like this question number 7. If there were a website like Airbnb that gave you numerous choices of gorgeous homes with backyards in LA that you could rent specifically for a wedding event, what would you think? This is the money shot question. Actually, this is value proposition, like remove if there were from the beginning and remove what do you think from the end. That's the value proposition statement. Okay, so this is good practice as well. Like if you include if there were in the beginning and what do you think at the end of your value proposition, you're going to get your money shot question immediately. Okay, good thing about this kind of formulation is that it's unbiased, neutral. You're not asking them, is it useful? Because that's giving them some kind of lead or giving them kind of idea. Like we don't want to bias them with the tone of your question or with the way that you're formulating. This question is neutral, perfectly neutral. What do you think? So you also ask them to think, like explicitly you ask them to think. So they don't just answer, they think about it, and then they try to come up with a good answer, basically. So, but what are those things like before this money shot question? Like this kind of transition kind of thing, like excellent, thank you, just one more or two more questions, and that's it. Just kind of transiting for transition between those two parts of your interview, and put emphasize on the last question. And question 6, you might not need it because this guy used Airbnb here, like Airbnb in the statement in this last question. So they asked the user, have you ever heard of or tried a website called Airbnb? Because it's very important for them to know that the participant understand how Airbnb works and all those features that they could see on Airbnb, like rating, like booking, like communicating, like everything, like money transfer, like location, everything's on Airbnb, and the work procedure on Airbnb is a thing that they're gonna use in their app. That's the reason they refer to Airbnb, and they want to know if the user have some previous experience with Airbnb, so they could understand the money shot question perfectly. Okay, and if they say no, they're gonna explain how Airbnb works, so to make sure that the participant knows what they are referring to here in their money shot question. If you don't have such a thing like Airbnb, Uber, Slack, or Discord, or something like that, you don't need to include this question number 6. That's question number 6 is there just to make sure that the participant understand the money shot question. So basically that's it. Like these are 3 parts of our problem interview, and it validates all those 3 things that we had. The participant would be like when you are doing this screener section, you are making sure that you have those assumptions related to your users covered. When you are asking your setup context questions, you are validating or evaluating basically your problem assumption. And then finally, the money shot question is about validation of your value proposition, your solution to that problem, and you want to validate them all here. Like these are the insight that you're collecting to process later and come up with some kind of solution, like result summary about if this is a good project to move forward with, or you just need to pivot a little bit or just discard it. Yeah.